The gunshot shattered the morning stillness, and Hannah Owens knew, without looking, that her brother was dead before his body hit the dusty ground outside the Silver Spur Saloon. She stood frozen in the doorway of the general store across the street, her basket of bread and salt pork slipping from her trembling fingers. The man who had fired the shot stood with his smoking revolver still raised, a sneer twisting his scarred face as he looked down at the body of Thomas Owens. 3 other men flanked the shooter, their hands resting on their own weapons, daring anyone in the gathering crowd to make a move. "That is what happens to cheaters," the shooter spat, holstering his gun with deliberate slowness. "Let it be known that nobody takes money from Jake Harlow and lives to spend it." Hannah felt her legs moving before her mind caught up, carrying her across the dirt street of Empire City, Nevada, her dark blue skirts kicking up small clouds of dust. She dropped to her knees beside Thomas, her hands hovering over the spreading crimson stain on his chest, knowing there was nothing to be done but unable to accept it. His eyes were already glassy, staring up at the merciless August sun of 1882. "Miss, you should step back," a voice said beside her, gentle but firm. She looked up into a weathered face beneath a worn hat, a man in his middle years with kind eyes and a sheriff's badge pinned to his vest. "There is nothing you can do for him now." "He did not cheat," Hannah heard herself saying, her voice breaking. "Thomas would never cheat. He was teaching school to save money for his wedding." The sheriff's expression grew even more sorrowful. "I believe you, Miss Owens, but Jake Harlow does not care about the truth. He only cares about his reputation." Hannah's grief crystallized into something harder, sharper. She rose to her feet, her green eyes blazing as she turned to face the 4 men who were already sauntering toward their horses. "You murdered him," she called out, her voice ringing clear across the street. "You murdered an innocent man." Jake Harlow paused, turning slowly. His eyes were cold as river stones. "You calling me a liar, girl? I am calling you a murderer." The crowd had grown silent, everyone holding their breath. The sheriff put a hand on Hannah's arm, but she shook it off. She knew she was being foolish, knew that her words could get her killed, but the rage burning in her chest would not be contained. Harlow took a step toward her, his hand drifting back toward his gun. Before he could speak, another voice cut through the tension. "She is grieving her brother, Harlow. Leave her be." A man stepped out from the crowd, and Hannah's eyes widened slightly. She had seen him around Empire City in the few weeks she had been living here with Thomas, but they had never spoken. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of desert stone. He wore dusty trail clothes and a gun belt that sat low on his hips, but there was something in his bearing that spoke of confidence without arrogance. "This is not your concern, Owen Irwin," Harlow said, but there was a note of caution in his voice now. "I am making it my concern." The 2 men locked eyes, and Hannah saw something pass between them, some history she did not understand. After a long moment, Harlow spat into the dirt and turned away. "She is not worth the bullet anyway. Let us go, boys." The 4 men mounted their horses and rode out of town at a leisurely pace, making it clear they feared no repercussions. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring among themselves, and the sheriff signaled to his deputy to take care of Thomas's body. Hannah stood there, her entire world crumbling around her, unable to process what had just happened. The man called Owen Irwin approached her carefully. "Miss, you should not have done that. Harlow is dangerous." "I do not care," Hannah said, her voice hollow. "He killed my brother. I know. And I am sorry for your loss." His voice was genuine, without the empty platitudes she could already hear coming from the townspeople. "Do you have somewhere to go? Family?" Hannah shook her head slowly. "Thomas was all I had." We came here from Boston 3 months ago after our parents died of cholera. He was going to marry Margaret Sutton and I was going to live with them until—" She could not finish the sentence. Owen was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes studying her face. "The boarding house has rooms. Mrs. Chen will give you a fair rate and she is good people. Let me walk you there." "I do not need your help," Hannah said, but even as the words left her mouth she felt her knees buckling. Owen caught her arm, steadying her, and she realized she was shaking violently. "Maybe not," he said gently, "but I am offering it anyway." She wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but the truth was she had no idea what to do next. She nodded mutely, and Owen guided her down the street to a neat 2-story building with a painted sign that read Chen's boarding house. Mrs. Chen was a small Chinese woman with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. She took one look at Hannah's face and immediately began preparing a room, refusing to discuss payment until later. Owen helped Hannah up the stairs, and she sank onto the bed in the small but clean room, staring at the wall. "I will leave you to rest," Owen said from the doorway. "The funeral will likely be tomorrow. Sheriff Dalton will handle the arrangements." "Why did you help me?" Hannah asked suddenly, looking up at him. "You do not even know me." Owen was quiet for a long moment. "Because it was the right thing to do," he finally said. "And because I know what it is like to lose family to men like Jake Harlow." Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Hannah lay back on the bed, still in her dusty clothes, and stared at the ceiling as tears finally began to fall. The funeral was held the next afternoon in the small cemetery on the edge of town. Margaret Sutton stood beside Hannah, weeping into a handkerchief, her dreams of marriage and happiness shattered alongside Hannah's world. A handful of townspeople attended, including the sheriff, Mrs. Chen, and Owen Irwin, who stood at the back and said nothing. Afterwards, as the others drifted away, Hannah remained at the graveside. She was dimly aware that she needed to figure out what to do next, how to survive in this harsh frontier town with no money and no family, but she could not seem to make her mind work properly. "Miss Owens." She turned to find Owen standing a respectful distance away, his hat in his hands. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cemetery. "I do not mean to intrude," he continued, "but I wanted to know if you had any plans. For what comes next, I mean." Hannah laughed, a bitter sound. "Plans? I have no plans. I have $20 to my name, no family and no prospects. Thomas spent most of our savings on the journey west and setting us up here." Owen shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "I have a proposition, if you will hear it. If you are going to suggest I work at one of the saloons, you can save your breath. That is not what I was going to suggest." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I have a ranch about 10 miles outside of town. It is not much, but it is mine. I inherited it from my uncle 2 years ago, and I have been building it up slowly. I could use help with the house and the cooking. In exchange, I would pay you a fair wage and provide room and board." Hannah stared at him. "You are offering me employment. You know nothing about me. I know you stood up to Jake Harlow when everyone else was too afraid. I know you loved your brother enough to risk your life for him. And I know you are in a difficult situation." He met her eyes steadily. "I am not offering charity, Miss Owens. I genuinely need the help. My cooking is terrible, the house is a disaster, and I spend so much time working the cattle and horses that I barely have time to keep up with everything else. Why not hire a man to help with the ranch work? I have a ranch hand named Pedro who comes 3 days a week. What I need is someone to manage the household so I can focus on building up the herd." He hesitated. "I know it is unusual, and if you are uncomfortable with the arrangement, I understand. But I want you to know it would be entirely proper. You would have your own room, and I would not presume anything beyond an employee arrangement." Hannah considered him carefully. He seemed sincere, and she had seen him around town enough to know he had a decent reputation. More importantly, she had few other options. The $20 would not last long, and there were limited opportunities for a respectable woman in a frontier town. "I do not know how to ranch," she said slowly. "I am not asking you to. I am asking you to keep house. Can you cook and clean?" "Yes. My mother taught me before she died." "Then that is all I need." He put his hat back on. "Think about it at least. I will be in town for supplies tomorrow morning. If you decide you are interested, meet me at the general store at 8. He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it is worth, Miss Owens, I think your brother would want you to be safe and provided for. Do not let pride put you in a dangerous situation." With that, he walked away, leaving Hannah alone among the graves with a decision to make. That night, Hannah lay awake in her room at the boarding house, weighing her options. She could try to find work in town, perhaps as a seamstress or a laundress, but those positions were few and did not pay well. She could write to distant relatives back east, but even if they agreed to take her in, the journey would cost money she did not have. Or she could accept Owen Irwin's offer and hope that he was as honorable as he seemed. By morning, she had made her decision. At 8 o'clock, she stood outside the general store with her few possessions packed in a carpet bag, waiting. Owen arrived a few minutes later, driving a wagon pulled by 2 sturdy horses. His face showed surprise, then something that might have been relief. "You came," he said simply. "I did, but I want to be clear about the terms. I will keep your house and cook your meals, and in exchange, you will pay me $15 a month plus room and board. I will have my own space, and you will treat me with respect. If at any point the arrangement becomes uncomfortable or improper, I will leave immediately. Are we agreed?" Owen nodded seriously. "Agreed. $20 a month. I said 15. And I say 20. A good housekeeper is worth it." He extended his hand, and after a moment Hannah shook it. His grip was firm but not crushing, his palm calloused from years of hard work. "Then we have a deal, Mr. Irwin. Owen, if we are going to be living under the same roof, we should use first names." "Hannah, then." They loaded her bag into the wagon, and Owen helped her up onto the seat beside him. As they drove out of Empire City, Hannah felt a mix of apprehension and curiosity. She was putting her trust in a man she barely knew, heading to an isolated ranch where she would have no protection if he proved to be less honorable than he appeared. But she also felt a small spark of something she had not felt since Thomas died: hope. The ranch was nestled in a valley between 2 low hills, with a creek running through the property. The house was a simple wooden structure with a covered porch, and there were several outbuildings including a barn, a stable, and a chicken coop. Cattle grazed in the distance, and Hannah could see fences that looked relatively new. "It is not much," Owen said, sounding almost apologetic. "But it is home." Hannah climbed down from the wagon, looking around. The land was beautiful in its stark way, with the Nevada mountains rising in the distance and the sky an endless blue overhead. "It is lovely," she said honestly. Owen showed her inside, and Hannah could immediately see what he meant about needing help. Dishes were piled in the basin, dust covered most surfaces, and there were clothes draped over furniture. The stove looked like it had not been properly cleaned in months. "I know it is bad," Owen said, looking embarrassed. "I have been focused on the outdoor work." "I have seen worse," Hannah lied kindly. "Give me a few days and I will have it sorted out." He showed her to a small bedroom off the main living area. It had a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. It was simple but clean, and Hannah felt herself relaxing slightly. "The other bedroom is on the opposite side of the house," Owen said, pointing. "You will have privacy here. I will bring in more water so you can settle in." Over the next few days, Hannah threw herself into work. It was easier than thinking about Thomas, easier than contemplating her uncertain future. She scrubbed and cleaned and organized, and slowly the house began to transform. She cooked proper meals, and Owen ate them with obvious appreciation, complimenting her cooking in a way that seemed genuine rather than flattering. They fell into a routine. Owen would rise before dawn and head out to work the ranch, often with Pedro when the ranch hand was there. Hannah would prepare breakfast, clean the house, tend the vegetable garden she discovered behind the house, and prepare dinner for the evening. They would eat together, conversation gradually becoming less stilted, and then Owen would retreat to his room while Hannah cleaned up and spent her evenings reading by lamplight or mending clothes. Pedro turned out to be a weathered Mexican man in his 50s with a ready smile and a wealth of stories about the old days in Nevada. He treated Hannah with courteous respect and seemed pleased that Owen finally had help with the household. "He is a good man, Senator Irwin," Pedro told Hannah one afternoon when Owen was out checking the fence line. "He took me on when other ranchers would not hire Mexicans. He pays fair and works as hard as any man I have known." "What happened to his uncle?" Hannah asked, curious despite herself. Pedro's expression darkened. "Jake Harlow happened. Senator Matthew Irwin owned this ranch for 20 years. He was tough but fair. Harlow wanted to buy the land, but Matthew refused to sell. One day, Matthew rode into town and never came back. They found him on the road, shot in the back. No proof of who did it, but everyone knew." Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. "So when Owen stood up for me, he was risking his life. Harlow has not forgotten that Matthew's nephew inherited this place. He is just waiting for an excuse to take it." Pedro shook his head. "You should know what you have gotten into, Senorita." That evening, as they ate dinner, Hannah found herself studying Owen more carefully. He was probably 26 or 27, she guessed, with the kind of lean strength that came from physical labor. His face was handsome in a rugged way, but it was his eyes that caught her attention. They were thoughtful, observant, and held a depth of sadness that resonated with her own grief. "Pedro told me about your uncle," she said abruptly. Owen's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly. "Did he?" "He said Jake Harlow killed him, that Harlow wants this ranch. Pedro talks too much sometimes." But there was no anger in Owen's voice, just resignation. "I deserve to know. If I am living here, if my presence puts you in more danger." "Your presence has nothing to do with Harlow," Owen interrupted. "He wanted this land before you came, and he will want it after. That is not your concern." "You made it my concern when you offered me a job," Hannah said firmly. "I will not be kept in the dark like some fragile flower. I have already lost my brother to that man. I will not lose." She stopped, surprised by her own words. Owen looked at her intently. "Will not lose what? My home," Hannah finished, though that had not been what she was going to say. "This place, my position here." A slow smile crossed Owen's face, the first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his features, making him look younger and less careworn. "You consider this home already?" Hannah felt herself blushing and looked down at her plate. "I suppose I do. Is that foolish after only a week?" "No," Owen said softly. "I do not think it is foolish at all." Something shifted between them in that moment, some invisible barrier crumbling. The conversation flowed more easily after that, and Hannah found herself laughing at a story Owen told about a stubborn horse that had once chased him halfway across the property. It felt good to laugh, felt almost like a betrayal of Thomas's memory, but also like a necessary step toward healing. As the weeks passed, Hannah settled more deeply into ranch life. She learned the rhythms of the land, the way the weather changed with barely any warning, the sounds of the animals at different times of day. She found herself looking forward to the evenings when Owen would come in dusty and tired, his face lighting up when he saw what she had prepared for dinner. They talked more, sharing pieces of their pasts. Owen had grown up in California, the son of a failed gold prospector who had drunk himself to death. He had drifted for years before his uncle Matthew found him and brought him to Nevada, giving him purpose and a place to belong. Hannah told him about Boston, about her parents' dry goods store and how her father's generosity had left them with little when he died. She told him about Thomas's dreams of being a teacher, of making a difference. He would have been good at it, Owen said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains. I could tell just from the short time I saw him around town. He had a kind face. He did, Hannah agreed, feeling the familiar ache in her chest. He always saw the best in people. That is probably why he did not realize Harlow was looking for an excuse to kill him. Harlow did not need an excuse. He is just evil. Owen's voice was hard. Men like him do not understand goodness, so they destroy it wherever they find it. Hannah looked at Owen's profile, at the tight set of his jaw. You hate him. I do. For what he did to my uncle, for what he did to your brother, for all the other lives he has ruined. Owen turned to meet her eyes. But I will not let that hate consume me. I will not let him take anything else from me. What if he tries? Then I will be ready. Owen stood, stretching. But enough dark talk. Tomorrow is Sunday. Would you like to go into town for the church service? I know you have been here a month and barely seen anyone. Hannah considered. She had been avoiding town, not wanting to face the pitying looks or the questions about her arrangement with Owen. But she also missed human contact beyond Owen and Pedro. Yes, I think I would like that. The church service the next morning was well attended, and Hannah was gratified to find that most people treated her with simple friendliness. Mrs. Chen gave her a warm hug, and several other women introduced themselves and invited her to the quilting circle that met on Wednesday afternoons. Margaret Sutton was there, looking pale and sad, and Hannah made a point to sit with her. How are you managing? Hannah asked quietly. Some days are better than others, Margaret admitted. I am teaching in Thomas's place now. The school board needed someone, and I have the education for it. She tried to smile. He would have wanted the children to keep learning. He would have, Hannah agreed, squeezing her hand. After the service, as people mingled outside, Hannah noticed several men talking to Owen in low, urgent voices. His expression grew increasingly serious, and when he finally made his way back to her, his face was troubled. We need to go, he said quietly. What is wrong? I will tell you on the way. They rode out of town in silence, but once they were clear of other people, Owen explained. There have been more killings. 2 ranchers in the past week, both shot from ambush. Both had refused to sell to Harlow. Hannah felt her stomach drop. Owen, you need to go to the law and say what? There is no proof it was Harlow, just like there was no proof with my uncle. The sheriff knows what is happening, but his hands are tied without evidence. Owen's hands tightened on the reins. I am not going to sell. This ranch is all I have left of my uncle, and I will not let Harlow take it through fear. Then you need help. More ranch hands, people to watch the property. I cannot afford more help right now. Most of my money is tied up in the herd, and I will not see real profit until I sell the cattle in the fall. Hannah was quiet for a moment, thinking. Teach me to shoot. Owen looked at her in surprise. What? Teach me to shoot. If someone comes to the ranch when you are out working, I need to be able to defend myself and the property. She met his eyes steadily. I am not some helpless woman who will faint at the sight of danger. I have already lost everything once. I will not go through that again without fighting. A slow smile spread across Owen's face. You are full of surprises, Hannah Owens. So I have been told. Will you teach me? I will. We will start this afternoon. The shooting lessons became a regular part of their routine. Owen was a patient teacher, showing Hannah how to hold the revolver steady, how to aim and breathe and squeeze the trigger smoothly. She was not a natural shot, but she was determined, and slowly she improved. More than that, the lessons gave them a reason to stand close together, for Owen to adjust her stance with gentle hands on her shoulders or arms, and Hannah found herself increasingly aware of his presence. She was falling for him. She tried to deny it at first, telling herself it was just gratitude or loneliness or the isolation of ranch life. But she could not deny the way her heart lifted when she heard him coming up to the house for dinner, or the way she found excuses to be near him, or the way she caught herself staring at his hands as they worked on mending a bridle or his profile, as he gazed out at the land he loved. It was wrong, she told herself. Thomas had been dead only 3 months. She was Owen's employee, dependent on him for her survival. She had no business developing feelings for him, and yet the feelings grew stronger with each passing day. She wondered if he felt anything in return. Sometimes she caught him looking at her with an expression she could not quite read, or he would let a touch linger just slightly longer than necessary. But he never said anything, never gave any clear indication that he saw her as anything more than his housekeeper. October arrived, and with it came the cattle drive. Owen would be taking his herd to the railhead in Reno to sell, a journey that would take at least 10 days there and back. Pedro would accompany him, along with 2 other hired hands, leaving Hannah alone at the ranch. I do not like leaving you, Owen said the morning they were preparing to depart. Not with everything that has been happening. I will be fine, Hannah assured him, though her own stomach was tight with anxiety. I have the rifle and you have shown me how to bar the doors and windows. I will be careful. Mrs. Chen said she would come stay with you, but I know you value your independence, Hannah smiled. I do, but if it will make you feel better, I will send word and ask her to come. It would make me feel better, Owen admitted. He hesitated, then reached out and took her hand. Hannah, I need to tell you something before I go. Her heart began to pound. What is it? You deserve better than this. Better than working on an isolated ranch for a man who cannot even keep you safe. Better than the danger that seems to follow me. You deserve security and comfort and... He trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. Hannah's hope crumbled. He was going to dismiss her to send her away for her own safety. Owen, please do not do this. Do not send me away. His eyes widened. Send you away? Hannah, that is not what I am saying at all. Then what are you saying? I am saying you deserve better than me. The words hung in the air between them. Hannah stared at him, her mind racing to catch up with what he was implying. Better than you, she repeated slowly. Yes. You are educated and refined and kind. You could have any man you wanted, someone who could give you a real home in a safe town, someone who is not marked for death by Jake Harlow. Owen's voice was rough with emotion. You deserve so much more than what I can offer you. Hannah felt something break open inside her chest, something that had been carefully locked away since Thomas died. There is nothing better than you, she said, her voice fierce. Owen went very still. Hannah, do you think I have not noticed how you make sure I have enough firewood before you go out for the day? Or how you fix the leak in my bedroom ceiling without being asked? Or how you always save the best cut of meat for me at dinner? She took a step closer to him. Do you think I have not seen the way you look at me sometimes, like I am something precious? Of course I look at you that way, Owen said, his voice barely above a whisper. You are precious, but that does not change the facts. I have nothing to offer you but a hard life and constant danger. You have everything to offer me, Hannah said. You have given me a home when I had nowhere to go. You have treated me with respect and kindness. You have made me laugh again when I thought I would never laugh again. You have made me feel alive. Hannah, your brother just died. Your grief is still fresh. You might be confusing gratitude with something else. Do not tell me what I feel, Hannah said sharply. I know the difference between gratitude and love. I have had 3 months to examine my feelings, 3 months of seeing you every day and getting to know who you are. I know my own heart, Owen Irwin. He looked at her with such longing that it made her chest ache. You love me. Yes, she said simply. I love you, and I think you love me too. I do, Owen said, the words tumbling out like he had been holding them back for too long. God help me, I do. I have loved you since the day I saw you stand up to Harlow, so brave and fierce even in your grief. I have loved you through every dinner we have shared, every conversation on the porch, every shooting lesson. I have been lying awake at night thinking about you, wanting to go to you and hating myself for it because you deserve better. There is nothing better than you, Hannah repeated, and then she was in his arms and he was kissing her, and it felt like coming home. The kiss was tender at first, almost hesitant, but it quickly deepened into something more passionate. Hannah wrapped her arms around Owen's neck and he pulled her closer, one hand tangling in her hair. They broke apart finally, both breathing hard, and Owen rested his forehead against hers. I have wanted to do that for so long, he murmured. Then why did you wait? Because I was afraid. Afraid you did not feel the same, afraid I was taking advantage of you, afraid that loving me would put you in even more danger. Hannah pulled back slightly to look into his eyes. I am already in danger just by living here, but I would rather face that danger with you than be safe without you. Owen cupped her face in his hands. When I get back from Reno, we will figure this out properly. I will court you the right way, the way you deserve. We are a bit past courting, do you not think? Hannah said with a smile. Maybe, but I still want to do this right. He kissed her again, softer this time. I will be back in 10 days. Wait for me. Always. Pedro's voice calling from the barn broke the moment, reminding them that the herd was ready and the other hands were waiting. Owen reluctantly released Hannah, though his eyes never left her face. Be safe, she told him. You too. Promise me you will get Mrs. Chen to stay with you. I promise. She watched from the porch as Owen and the other men drove the cattle out, heading northwest toward Reno. He turned in his saddle multiple times to look back at her, and each time her heart swelled with a mixture of love and fear. The land seemed very empty once they were out of sight. Hannah kept her promise and sent word to Mrs. Chen, who arrived the next day with a carpetbag of her own and a no-nonsense attitude. A young woman alone on an isolated ranch with Jake Harlow causing trouble, Mrs. Chen said, shaking her head. Owen was right to ask me to come. Now, what needs doing around here, having Mrs. Chen there was comforting. The older woman was practical and unflappable, and she had a talent for making even mundane chores feel companionable. They spent the days preserving vegetables from the garden, mending clothes, and doing the deep cleaning that Hannah had not had time for while managing everything alone. On the third evening after Owen left, they heard horses approaching the ranch. Hannah grabbed the rifle while Mrs. Chen barred the door, both women moving to the windows to look out. Hannah's stomach clenched when she recognized Jake Harlow among the 4 riders. What do you want? She called through the closed door, proud that her voice came out steady. Just being neighborly, Harlow called back. Wanted to check on you ladies all alone out here, make sure you are safe. We are perfectly safe and we do not need your concern. Leave our property. Harlow laughed. Your property? This is Irwin's property and last I checked, you are just his hired help. though I have heard some interesting rumors about exactly what kind of help you are providing." Hannah felt her face flush with anger. "You will leave now, or I will shoot you for trespassing." Now, no need for threats. I actually came with a business proposition. Irwin is going to have an accident on his way back from Reno. Terrible thing, cattle drives, so dangerous. All sorts of things can happen. Now, when that happens, you ladies are going to be in a difficult position. But I am a generous man. I am willing to pay a fair price for this land, and you could act as administrator of Irwin's estate. Hannah's hands tightened on the rifle, but before she could respond, Mrs. Chen spoke up. "You are threatening murder in front of witnesses, Harlow. That is bold even for you." "Witnesses?" "I do not see any witnesses. Just 3 of my men who will swear we were nowhere near this place." Harlow's voice turned cold. "Think about my offer. When Irwin does not come back, you will need someone to take this land off your hands. Better to work with me than against me." They rode off, and Hannah slowly lowered the rifle, her entire body shaking. "He is going to kill Owen." "He is going to try," Mrs. Chen corrected, "but Owen is smart and Pedro is clever. They will be careful. I need to warn them." "How?" "They are days away by now, and you do not know their exact route." Mrs. Chen took the rifle gently from Hannah's hands. "We will send word to the sheriff and we will wait. That is all we can do." The waiting was agony. Every day felt like a year, and Hannah jumped at every sound, convinced that it was either Owen returning or news of his death. She tried to keep busy, but her mind constantly wandered to worst-case scenarios. Mrs. Chen stayed with her, providing what comfort she could. On the 8th day, a rider came to the ranch. Hannah's heart leaped, then plummeted when she saw it was not Owen but a young man she recognized as one of the hands who had gone on the drive. "Miss Owens," he said, his hat in his hands, "there has been trouble." Hannah felt the world tilt. "Is Owen dead?" "No, madam, but he is hurt. There was an ambush 2 days outside of Reno. 4 men tried to shoot into the camp at night, but Pedro heard them coming and raised the alarm. We fought them off, but Mr. Irwin took a bullet to the shoulder." "Where is he?" "They are in Reno. He sold the cattle and is resting up before the ride back, but he wanted me to ride ahead and let you know he is all right. He did not want you to worry when they were late." Hannah wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Owen had been shot and was worried about her being concerned. "How bad is the wound?" "Doctor said it is clean and should heal well, but Mr. Irwin needs to take it easy for a few weeks. They will be back in 3 or 4 days, moving slower than planned." After the hand left to return to town, Hannah paced the house restlessly. Owen was alive but hurt, and there was nothing she could do except wait. She threw herself into preparations, making up his bed with fresh linens, preparing broths and easy meals for an invalid, gathering medical supplies. "He will be fine," Mrs. Chen assured her. "Shoulder wounds are painful but rarely fatal if they are treated properly." "I know, I just need him to be home." "You really love him, do not you?" Hannah nodded. "More than I thought possible. Is that terrible? Thomas has been gone such a short time." "Love does not follow a schedule, Mrs. Chen said wisely. "Your brother would want you to be happy, and Owen is a good man. I have known him since he came to Empire City, and I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." 3 days later, Hannah heard the wagon coming up the road and ran out onto the porch. Owen was driving, his left arm in a sling with Pedro riding alongside. His face was pale and drawn with pain and exhaustion, but he smiled when he saw her. Hannah helped him down from the wagon, trying not to hurt his shoulder, and he leaned on her heavily as she guided him inside. Pedro saw to the horses while Mrs. Chen heated water for washing. "You were shot," Hannah said, her voice shaking as she settled Owen into a chair. "I was, but the other men were worse off." His good hand came up to touch her face. "I am all right, Hannah, I promise. You could have been killed." "But I was not, and we have proof now that Harlow is behind the attacks. 2 of the ambushers survived, and they are singing like canaries to avoid the noose. The sheriff in Reno sent word to Empire City. Harlow is going to be arrested." Hannah felt a rush of relief so intense it made her dizzy. "It is really over. It is really over." Owen pulled her down for a kiss, which Mrs. Chen pointedly ignored as she bustled around preparing bandages. Over the next few weeks, as Owen recovered, the news from town confirmed everything. Jake Harlow had been arrested along with several of his men. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and everyone expected they would hang. The other ranchers Harlow had been terrorizing breathed easier, and there was a palpable sense of relief throughout Empire City. Owen chafed at being forced to rest, but Hannah was merciless in making him take it easy. She changed his bandages, brought him meals in bed, and sat with him in the evenings reading aloud or just talking. The forced closeness brought them even closer together, and Hannah marveled at how comfortable she felt with him, how natural it seemed to care for him this way. One evening, about a month after the ambush, Owen called her into his room. His shoulder was healing well, and he was already regaining strength in his arm. He was sitting up in bed, looking nervous. "Is something wrong?" Hannah asked, concerned. "Are you in pain?" "No, nothing like that." He patted the edge of the bed. "Sit with me for a minute." Hannah sat, and Owen took her hand. "I have been thinking a lot while I have been laid up, about my life, about this ranch, about what I want for the future." "And what do you want?" "You. I want you, Hannah, not as my housekeeper, not as someone who is just living here out of necessity. I want you as my wife." Hannah's breath caught. "Owen, I know it is fast. I know you might want more time after everything that has happened, but I am sure of this. I am sure of you, of us." He reached into the drawer of his bedside table and pulled out a small box. "This was my mother's. It is the only thing I have from her. I would be honored if you would wear it." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small green stone. It was not fancy or expensive, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. "Yes," Hannah said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Yes, I will marry you." Owen slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. He pulled her close, kissing her with all the passion and tenderness she had come to associate with him. When they finally broke apart, they were both smiling through their tears. "I will build you a better house," Owen promised. "Add more rooms, make it comfortable. You will never want for anything." "I do not need a bigger house. I just need you." They were married in December in the same church where they had buried Thomas. It was a small ceremony, attended by Mrs. Chen, Pedro, the sheriff and his wife, and a handful of other friends they had made. Margaret Sutton came and cried happy tears, saying that Thomas would have approved. Hannah wore a simple blue dress that Mrs. Chen had helped her make, and Owen wore his Sunday best with his arm finally free of the sling. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Owen kissed her thoroughly, to the amusement of the congregation. The wedding night was tender and passionate, both of them nervous but eager. Owen was careful with Hannah, making sure she was comfortable, and Hannah marveled at the rightness of being with him this way. They fell asleep tangled together, and Hannah thought she had never been happier. Life as Owen's wife was different from life as his housekeeper, though the daily tasks remained much the same. But now there were stolen kisses in the kitchen, arms around her waist as she cooked, evenings spent curled together on the porch watching the stars. Owen was affectionate and attentive, always finding ways to show her he loved her. In January, Jake Harlow and 3 of his men were hanged for murder. Owen and Hannah did not attend the execution, but they heard about it from people in town. Hannah felt no satisfaction in Harlow's death. only a weary relief that the threat was finally, truly over. Spring came, bringing new life to the ranch. The cattle had survived the winter well, and several calves were born. Owen hired another hand to help Pedro, and the ranch began to truly prosper. In March, Hannah realized she had missed her monthly courses and felt a flutter of nervous excitement. She waited another month to be sure before telling Owen. He was out mending the fence when she brought him lunch, and she decided she could not keep the news to herself any longer. "Owen, I have something to tell you." He looked up from his work, immediately concerned. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. Everything is perfect, actually." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Owen's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, realization, wonder, and finally pure joy. "A baby, Hannah, truly, truly. The baby should come in late October or early November." Owen let out a whoop of happiness and picked her up, spinning her around before remembering himself and setting her down gently. "I am going to be a father. We are going to be parents. You are happy, happy. I am the happiest man in Nevada, in the entire world." He cupped her face in his hands. "You have given me everything, Hannah. Everything I never even knew I wanted." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Owen became even more protective, insisting that Hannah rest more and do less heavy work. They hired a young woman from town to help with some of the household chores, giving Hannah more time to prepare for the baby. In late October, Hannah went into labor. Mrs. Chen came to help, along with the doctor from town. Owen paced outside the bedroom for hours, listening to Hannah's cries and feeling helpless. Finally, just as the sun was setting, a baby's wail filled the house. Mrs. Chen emerged, smiling. "You have a son, Owen, a healthy, strong boy, and Hannah is doing well." Owen rushed into the bedroom to find Hannah exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. His son. He could barely comprehend it. "Meet your father," Hannah said softly to the baby. "The best man I have ever known." Owen sat carefully on the edge of the bed, looking down at the tiny, perfect face. "He is beautiful. You are both beautiful." "What should we name him?" Owen thought for a moment. "Thomas, if that is all right with you, in honor of your brother." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "That is perfect." "Thomas Irwin." Tommy. Over the next months, they settled into the rhythm of new parenthood. Tommy was a good baby, healthy and alert, with Owen's gray eyes and Hannah's dark hair. Owen was a devoted father, coming in from the fields multiple times a day just to hold his son. Hannah watched him with Tommy and felt her heart overflow with love. The ranch continued to thrive. They added more cattle, improved the house with a proper second story and more rooms, and built up a reputation for quality livestock. Other ranchers sought Owen's advice, and he became a respected figure in the community. When Tommy was 2, Hannah became pregnant again, and this time they welcomed a daughter they named Mary. 2 years after that came another son, James. The house that had once seemed too big now felt full and warm with the sound of children playing. Hannah sometimes thought about Thomas and her parents, wishing they could have seen her happiness. But she no longer felt the sharp, stabbing grief that had characterized those early months after Thomas's death. Instead, she felt gratitude for the time she had with them and peace knowing that they would have wanted this life for her. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen and Hannah sat on the porch in the evening, watching their children play in the yard. Tommy, now almost 9, was teaching Mary and James how to rope a fence post. The sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Do you ever regret it?" Hannah asked. "Marrying me so quickly, taking on so much responsibility." Owen turned to her with surprise. "Regret it? Not for a single moment. Why would you ask that?" Sometimes I think about that day in the cemetery when you offered me work. You could have just walked away, left me to figure things out on my own. Your life would have been simpler. My life would have been empty, Owen corrected. You gave me purpose, Hannah. Before you, I was just going through the motions, working the ranch because it was what my uncle wanted, not because I had any real stake in the future. You made me want to build something lasting, something to pass on to our children. I love you, Hannah said simply. And I love you. I always will. They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the desert twilight deepen into night. The children's laughter floated on the evening air, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. It was the life Hannah had never known she wanted, born from tragedy and loss, but made beautiful by love and perseverance. Years continued to pass in their steady rhythm. Tommy grew into a serious young man with his father's quiet strength and his mother's intelligence. He showed early talent for managing the ranch and often accompanied Owen on trips to buy and sell livestock. Mary was bright and adventurous, insisting on learning to shoot and ride as well as any boy, much to her mother's amusement and occasional concern. James was the dreamer of the family, preferring books to ranching, and Hannah and Owen encouraged his scholarly interests, knowing he might find his calling elsewhere. When Tommy turned 18 in 1895, Owen officially made him a partner in the ranch. It was no longer just Irwin Ranch but Irwin and Son, a fact that filled Owen with enormous pride. Pedro had finally retired the year before, though he still came by regularly to share meals and tell the children stories about the old days. On one such visit, as they all sat around the dinner table, Pedro raised his glass. To the Irwins, you have built something special here, something that will last for generations. Matthew would be proud, Owen. And you, Hannah, you have made this house a home in a way it never was before. To family, Owen said, raising his own glass. To family, everyone echoed. Later that night, as Hannah and Owen prepared for bed, Hannah caught sight of her reflection in the mirror. She was 42 now, with threads of silver in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from years of squinting at the desert sun. But her eyes were bright and her face was content. Owen came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? About how much has changed since that day Thomas died. I was so lost, so certain my life was over. She leaned back against him. I never could have imagined this, all of this. I knew, Owen said softly. From that first day in the cemetery, I knew you were strong enough to survive anything. I just hoped you might choose to survive with me. Hannah turned in his arms to face him. There is nothing better than you. I told you that once. Do you remember? I remember. I remember everything about those early days, how beautiful you looked even in your grief, how brave you were, how you transformed my dusty bachelor house into a real home. And I remember how you looked at me even then, like I was precious, like I mattered. Hannah rose on her toes to kiss him. You saved me, Owen. No, Owen said firmly. We saved each other. In 1897, Mary announced that she was going to marry a young man named Daniel Wright, the son of a neighboring rancher. Hannah threw herself into planning the wedding, remembering her own simple ceremony and wanting something grander for her daughter. The wedding was held at the ranch with half the county in attendance. It was a joyous celebration, though Hannah cried through the entire ceremony. She is only moving 10 miles away, Owen reminded her, amused. I know, I am just being foolish. But Owen's eyes were also suspiciously bright as he walked Mary down the makeshift aisle, and Hannah loved him even more for it. James, true to his scholarly nature, earned a place at a university in California and left for his studies in 1899. The house felt emptier without him. though he wrote long letters about his studies and the exciting world of ideas he was discovering. Tommy and his new wife, Sarah, moved into the house to help run the ranch, and soon there was the patter of a new generation of small feet. Owen and Hannah became grandparents in 1900, when Mary gave birth to a daughter. Hannah held her first grandchild and marveled at the circle of life, at how this tiny baby represented both the future and all the love that had brought them to this moment. The 20th century brought changes to Nevada. The railroad expanded, bringing more people and more commerce. Empire City grew from a rough frontier town into something more civilized, with proper schools and churches, and even a telephone line. But the Irwin Ranch remained much as it had always been, a place of hard work and family and love. In 1905, on their 23rd wedding anniversary, Owen gave Hannah a gift. It was a leather-bound journal, empty pages waiting to be filled. "What is this for?" Hannah asked. "For your story." "Our story. I want you to write it all down, everything that happened, so our grandchildren and their children will know where they came from. They should know about your courage, about how we found each other in the darkest time." Hannah opened the journal, running her fingers over the smooth pages. "I would not know where to start. Start with the day we met. Start with the gunshot." So Hannah began to write. She wrote in the evenings after the day's work was done, with Owen reading beside her and offering his own memories to supplement hers. She wrote about Thomas and the terrible morning of his death. She wrote about Owen's kindness, about falling in love despite her grief, about building a life together. She wrote about their children and the ranch and the community they had become part of. It took her nearly 2 years to finish, working slowly and carefully to capture not just the events but the emotions behind them. When she finally wrote the last word, she showed the completed journal to Owen. "Read me the ending," he requested. Hannah flipped to the last page. "I have been blessed beyond measure. I have known terrible loss and profound love, devastating grief and overwhelming joy. Through it all, there has been Owen, my partner in every way that matters. When I told him he deserved better, he said there was nothing better than me. But the truth is, we made each other better. We made a life together that neither of us could have made alone, and that is the greatest gift I have ever received." Owen was quiet for a long moment. "That is beautiful, Hannah, though I still maintain there is nothing better than you." "You are impossible," Hannah said fondly. "I am yours," Owen corrected. "Always have been, always will be." They were 65 and 64 respectively when the first automobile came to Empire City, causing a sensation. Tommy laughed at his parents' amazement, saying this was the future. But Owen and Hannah preferred their horses and their wagon, comfortable with the old ways. James returned from university with a doctorate and a position as a professor, proud and accomplished. He married a fellow academic, and though they lived in California, they visited regularly. Mary and Daniel had given them 4 grandchildren by then, and Tommy and Sarah 3, with another on the way. In 1910, Owen woke one morning with pains in his chest. The doctor said his heart was weakening, a consequence of years of hard labor and simply growing older. He prescribed rest and less strenuous activity, and Tommy took over most of the daily running of the ranch. Owen chafed at the restrictions but obeyed for Hannah's sake. They spent more time together, taking gentle walks around the property, sitting on the porch in the evenings, reminiscing about all the years they had shared. "I have no regrets," Owen told Hannah one evening as they watched the sunset. "I have lived a good life, a full life. And it has all been because of you." "Do not talk like you are dying," Hannah scolded, though her voice shook slightly. "I am not planning on it any time soon. I just want you to know." He took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Hannah Owens Irwin, the very best thing. Hannah leaned her head on his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of him. And you were mine, are mine, will always be mine. They sat that way until the stars came out, two people who had found each other in tragedy and built a lifetime of love. The house behind them was full of their children and grandchildren, visiting for the weekend, their laughter and conversation drifting out through the open windows. The ranch spread out around them, prosperous and well-tended, a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. "You remember that day in the cemetery?" Hannah asked softly. "When you offered me work, every detail," Owen said. "You looked so lost, so heartbroken. I wanted to help you, but I never dreamed you would come to mean everything to me. I almost did not come the next morning. I almost decided it was too risky, too improper." Hannah smiled at the memory. "Thank God I found the courage. Thank God indeed." Owen kissed her temple. "Though knowing you, you would have found a way to survive and thrive even without me. Maybe, but it would not have been half as good." They fell into comfortable silence, and Hannah thought about all the years behind them and however many they had left ahead. She thought about Thomas, about how he had brought her to Nevada and how his death had paradoxically led to her greatest happiness. She thought about her parents, about Margaret Sutton, who had remarried and had children of her own, about Pedro and Mrs. Chen and all the other people who had touched their lives. But mostly she thought about Owen, about the man who had defended her when she had no one else, who had given her work when she was desperate, who had loved her even when he thought he should not. The cowboy who had claimed he was not good enough for her, never understanding that he was everything she needed. "I love you," she said, the words as true and vital as the first time she had said them 30 years ago. "I love you too," Owen replied. "There is nothing better than you, Hannah. There never was, and there never will be." As the desert night deepened around them, and the first chill of evening set in, they rose together and went inside to their family. The children and grandchildren made room for them at the table, and there was laughter and stories and the warmth of people who loved each other. Hannah looked around at all of it, all the life that had grown from those dark days in 1882, and felt a deep and abiding peace. This was her legacy. Not just the ranch or the children, but the love that had sustained all of it. The love between a grieving woman and a lonely cowboy, two broken people who had made each other whole. Owen caught her eye across the table and smiled, and Hannah smiled back. After all these years, that smile still made her heart skip a beat. She reached across and took his hand, their fingers intertwining as naturally as breathing. Whatever years they had left, they would face them together, just as they always had. Years continued to roll by with the steady inevitability of seasons changing. Owen's heart condition stabilized with rest and care, and while he was no longer able to do the heavy ranch work, he remained active and engaged, serving as an advisor to Tommy and spending time with his growing brood of grandchildren. He delighted in teaching them the same lessons he had taught his own children, about honor and hard work and treating others with respect. Hannah herself aged gracefully, her hair turning silver white but her spirit remaining as strong as ever. She still maintained her vegetable garden, though now she had help from her granddaughters. She still cooked family dinners, though Sarah had taken over most of the daily meal preparation. She spent her afternoons with her quilting circle, surrounded by women who had become dear friends over the decades. In 1915, as the world beyond Nevada descended into war, the Irwin family gathered to celebrate Owen and Hannah's 33rd anniversary. The house and yard were full of children and grandchildren, and even some great-grandchildren now that Mary's oldest daughter had married and had a baby of her own. Tommy stood to make a toast, his own hair showing threads of gray now. To my parents, who showed all of us what real love looks like. Who built this ranch and this family with their own hands and hearts. Who faced down outlaws and drought and every challenge the West could throw at them, and came through stronger together. We are all blessed to be their children and their legacy. To Owen and Hannah, the assembled family echoed, raising their glasses. Later, after the party had wound down and most of the family had departed or settled in for the night, Owen and Hannah once again found themselves on the porch. It had become their place, the spot where they had shared so many conversations and quiet moments over the years. 33 years, Hannah mused. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, and sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday that you asked me to marry you. Do you know what I remember most clearly? Owen asked. The day you told me I deserved better, and I told you there was nothing better than you. That was the moment I knew we were going to be all right. That was the moment I understood you loved me as much as I loved you. Hannah remembered that day vividly. It had been shortly before Owen left for the cattle drive, when they had both been afraid to acknowledge their feelings. We were both so scared, she said. Scared of what we felt, scared of the future, scared of losing what we had found. But we were brave enough to try anyway, Owen said. That is what I want our family to remember. Not that we were never afraid, but that we loved each other enough to be brave. In 1918, when the war finally ended, the family gathered again to give thanks that James had been too old and Tommy too essential to the ranch to be drafted. They celebrated with a quiet dinner, grateful for their good fortune when so many families had lost sons and husbands. That same year, Owen's health took a turn for the worse. His heart, which had been stable for years, began to fail more noticeably. He grew tired more easily, and there were days when he stayed in bed, his breathing labored. Hannah rarely left his side during those times, holding his hand and reading to him, or simply sitting with him in companionable silence. The doctor was frank with the family. Owen had perhaps months left, possibly a year at most. His heart was simply worn out after 77 years of beating. There was nothing to be done, except make him comfortable and cherish the time they had left. Hannah refused to let despair take hold. She had known this day would come eventually, but she was determined that Owen's remaining time would be filled with love and peace, not sadness. She made his favorite meals, ensured the grandchildren visited regularly to brighten his days, and spent every evening beside him, reminiscing about their life together. One autumn evening in October 1919, as the air turned crisp and the leaves on the cottonwoods by the creek turned gold, Owen asked Hannah to help him out to the porch one last time. He was very weak now, his breathing shallow, but he insisted he wanted to see the sunset. Hannah helped him into his chair, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders, and sat beside him. They watched in silence as the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and reds, the mountains standing stark against the colorful backdrop. "This is where I want to be," Owen said softly. "Right here with you, looking at this land we built a life on." "You are not going anywhere yet," Hannah said, but her voice caught. "Hannah, my love, we both know that is not true." Owen took her hand, his grip weak but determined. "I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will be happy after I am gone. Promise me you will not shut yourself away in grief. You have so much life left to live, so many people who need you." Tears streamed down Hannah's face. "How can I be happy without you? The same way you were happy after Thomas died. The same way you have faced every challenge in your life." Owen lifted his other hand to wipe away her tears. "You are the strongest person I have ever known, Hannah Owens. You will survive this, and you will honor my memory by living fully, by loving our family, by finding joy wherever you can." "I love you so much," Hannah whispered. "I do not know how to be without you. You will never be without me. I am in every board of this house we built together, every fence post on this ranch, every smile on our children's faces. I am woven into the fabric of your life, and death cannot change that." Owen smiled at her, the same gentle smile he had given her thousands of times over their years together. "You gave me everything, Hannah, everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, a purpose. You made me a better man. You made me whole again when I thought I was broken beyond repair," Hannah said. "You gave me a reason to keep living when I wanted to give up. There was nothing better than you. There will never be anything better than you." "We were better together," Owen corrected gently. "That is the gift we gave each other. Not perfection, but partnership. Not a fairy tale, but a real, messy, beautiful life built on love and trust, and showing up for each other every single day." They sat together as the sun set, and the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Owen's breathing grew more labored, but he refused to go inside. Hannah held his hand and talked to him about their life, about all the moments that had mattered, about the legacy they were leaving behind. Tommy and Sarah came out to check on them, and then the other children were called. They gathered around Owen, and he looked at each of them with profound love. "Take care of your mother," he told them. "Take care of each other. And remember that love is always worth fighting for, always worth the risk. Your mother and I built something beautiful together, and that beauty lives on in all of you." As the night deepened, Owen's breathing became increasingly difficult. The doctor was sent for, but everyone knew there was nothing he could do. This was simply time running out, the natural end of a long life well lived. Hannah held Owen's hand throughout the night, talking to him softly, reminding him of their greatest moments together. She told him about the day they met, the day he proposed, the births of their children, all the little daily moments that had made up their life together. Just before dawn, as the first light began to touch the eastern sky, Owen squeezed Hannah's hand one last time. "Best thing that ever happened to me," he whispered. "You were the best thing." "And you were mine," Hannah said through her tears. "Always." Owen smiled, his eyes on Hannah's face, and then he was gone. The hand in Hannah's grew still, and the man who had been her partner for 37 years slipped peacefully away. Hannah sat with him for a long time, crying quietly, her children surrounding her with their own grief. But even through the pain, she felt a strange sense of peace. Owen had been right. He would never truly be gone. He was part of everything good in her life, and that would never change. The funeral was held 3 days later, and it seemed like half of Nevada turned out to pay their respects. Owen had touched many lives over the years, and the stories people told painted a picture of a man who had been kind, fair, and deeply loved. Hannah listened to them all, finding comfort in knowing that others had seen in Owen the same qualities she had cherished. Margaret Sutton came to the funeral, gray-haired now and a widow herself, and she held Hannah's hand throughout the service. "Thomas would have been so happy that you found Owen," she told Hannah afterward. "He always wanted you to be happy." Mrs. Chen, now in her 90s and frail but still sharp as ever, offered her own comfort. "You and Owen had something special. Not many people get that kind of love in their lifetime. You were blessed." In the weeks and months after Owen's death, Hannah found herself struggling with the enormous emptiness his absence left. The house felt too quiet, the bed too large, the evenings too long. She understood now what Owen had meant when he made her promise to keep living. It would have been so easy to simply give up, to let grief consume her. But she had made a promise, and Hannah Owens Irwin had always kept her promises. She threw herself into life with her family. She taught her granddaughters to cook and sew and garden. She told her grandson stories about their grandfather and the early days of the ranch. She attended church services and quilting circles and social gatherings, even when she did not feel like it, because Owen had wanted her to keep engaging with life. Slowly, gradually, the sharp edges of grief softened into something more manageable. She would never stop missing Owen, never stop wishing he was beside her, but she learned to carry the loss without letting it destroy her. She found she could laugh again without feeling guilty, could take pleasure in small things, could look forward to tomorrow instead of just surviving today. Tommy and Sarah were endlessly patient with her, letting her grieve in her own way while also gently encouraging her to stay active. The grandchildren brought joy and chaos into the house, and Hannah found that their energy and innocence helped heal her wounded heart. On what would have been their 38th anniversary, Hannah visited Owen's grave in the cemetery on the edge of what was now a much larger Empire City. She brought flowers and sat beside the headstone, talking to him as if he could hear her. "I am still here," she told him, "still keeping my promise. Some days are harder than others, but I am managing. The children are well. Tommy is doing a wonderful job with the ranch. Mary's youngest just got engaged. James is writing a book. We have 14 grandchildren now and 3 great-grandchildren, with more on the way." She paused, running her fingers over his name carved into the stone. "I still think you deserved better than me, you know." A woman who was not carrying so much grief and damage when you met her. Someone easier, less complicated. The wind rustled through the cottonwood trees, and Hannah could almost hear Owen's voice in her head, saying the same thing he had said so many years ago. "There is nothing better than you." "You were wrong about that," Hannah said with a watery smile. "But I am so glad you thought it was true. You saved me, Owen, and I hope I made you happy. I hope our life together was everything you wanted." She sat there for a long time, feeling the sun warm on her face and remembering a gunshot on a dusty street, a quiet offer of employment, a ranch house that became a home, shooting lessons and stolen kisses, a proposal with a simple gold ring, children and grandchildren, and a lifetime of love. When she finally rose to leave, she placed her hand on the headstone one more time. "I love you. I will always love you, and someday when my time comes I will find you again. But until then I will live. I will love our family. I will honor your memory by being happy. That is my promise to you." Hannah lived for another 7 years after Owen's death. Years filled with family and community and quiet joy. She watched more grandchildren be born, saw Tommy expand the ranch to twice its original size, celebrated James's success as a professor and author, and danced at Mary's youngest daughter's wedding. She grew frailer as the years passed, her body slowly wearing out just as Owen's had. But her mind remained sharp, and her spirit never dimmed. She spent her final years documenting family stories and histories, wanting to ensure that future generations would know where they came from and the love that had built their family. In the spring of 1926, at the age of 84, Hannah fell ill with pneumonia. The doctor said there was little hope given her age, and the family gathered once more at the ranch house. Hannah was peaceful, accepting that her time had come. She had lived a long, full life, and she was ready to rest. On her last day, she asked to be moved to a chair by the window so she could see the land one more time. Tommy and Mary sat with her, holding her hands, while the grandchildren and great-grandchildren filled the house with their presence. "Tell them about us," Hannah whispered to her children. "Tell them about your father and me. Tell them about the gunshot and the cemetery and how we found each other. Tell them that love is always worth the risk." "We will, Mama," Mary promised, tears streaming down her face. "We will tell them," Tommy echoed, his voice thick with emotion. Hannah smiled, her eyes on the mountains in the distance. She could almost see Owen standing there, waiting for her, his hand extended just as it had been that day in the cemetery so many years ago. "There is nothing better than you," she heard him say as clearly as if he were in the room. "There is nothing better than you either," she whispered back. "I am coming home." And with her children's hands in hers and the land she loved stretching out before her, Hannah Owens Irwin closed her eyes and went to find her cowboy. The ranch passed to Tommy, and then to his children and their children after him. The story of Owen and Hannah became family legend, told and retold at gatherings and celebrations. The journal Hannah had written was carefully preserved, a treasure that allowed each generation to know the truth of their ancestors' great love. Years turned into decades, and the frontier world that Owen and Hannah had known vanished into history. Empire City became a modern town with paved streets and electric lights. The ranch adapted to new technologies and new ways of doing things. But the core of what Owen and Hannah had built remained unchanged. A family founded on love, loyalty, and the courage to face whatever came together. On the 100th anniversary of Owen and Hannah's marriage, the family gathered at the ranch for a massive reunion. Over 200 descendants came from across the country to celebrate the legacy of the cowboy and the grieving woman who had found each other in the wild Nevada frontier. They visited the cemetery, where Owen and Hannah lay side by side under matching headstones. Someone read passages from Hannah's journal, including the moment when she had told Owen he deserved better, and he had replied that there was nothing better than her. There was not a dry eye in the crowd. That evening, as the extended family gathered for a feast at the ranch, the current generation of Irwins raised their glasses in a toast. "To Owen and Hannah," they said together, "who showed us all what true love looks like, who built something beautiful out of tragedy and loss, who proved that the best things in life are worth fighting for. May we all be so lucky in love, and may we honor their memory by loving as fiercely and faithfully as they loved each other." The sun set over the Nevada mountains, just as it had on countless evenings when Owen and Hannah had sat on the porch together. The land endured, the family thrived, and the love story that had started with a gunshot and a promise continued to inspire everyone who heard it. Because in the end, that was the truth that Owen and Hannah had discovered and lived every day of their life together. There is nothing more powerful than love, nothing more transformative than finding the person who sees you at your worst and chooses to stay anyway. Nothing more beautiful than building a life with someone who believes there is nothing better than you. Their story was over, but its echoes would continue forever, carried forward by every child who bore their names, every couple who looked at each other with the same devotion, every person who heard their story and believed a little more strongly in the power of love to heal and transform and endure. Still sense the love that had transformed two broken people into something whole and beautiful. Still hear, if you listened carefully, the echo of a cowboy telling his love that there was nothing better than her, and a woman replying that she had found her home at last. That was their gift to the world, proof that love can bloom in the darkest soil, that hope can rise from despair, that two people who find each other at exactly the right moment can change the course of not just their own lives but generations to come. The ranch endured, the family flourished, and the love story of Owen and Hannah Irwin became the foundation upon which everything else was built. And in the end, that was more than either of them could have dreamed of that morning in 1882, when a gunshot shattered the silence and set in motion events that would echo through time. They had found each other when both needed saving. They had built a life together when neither had thought they deserved one. And they had loved each other so completely, so faithfully, that their love became immortal, living on long after they were gone. There was nothing better than that. There was nothing better than them. And there never would be.